Sarthak for this, the next edition of our Startup Insight series, which is Fire Up, and that is jointly organized by Ujis MedTech, CIIIT, and Succeed Innovation Fund. So, as I completely know your background and the kind of work you are doing, as an investor, mentor, deal curator, and evaluating multiple medtech startups for investment. Today, we really want to discuss about how how do you see the medtech space going to look like in this very new normal, which we haven't seen before any time. And so the whole the idea of this discussion would also be, towards the end, we also want to have some pointers for the startups who have joined and also watching live, that would be helpful for them to, when they're going to raise funding. So that's the context. So with that, I would like to start our first question, which is basically, uh, as we all know, we are going through a very, very struggling time. The dynamics have completely changed. Healthcare space, with so much restriction in accessing physical healthcare facilities. So, what do you think? How what different opportunities does this new normal is offering, and how can startups actually can take advantage of this? So with this, and then I would obviously, we will have another question. So I would like to pick up your mind on the new normal offerings. Yeah, Sarthak.
Thank you, Sonali. Thank you, Seth, so much for having me here. I think first I'd like to congratulate CIE, Triple IT, OJUS in doing a tremendous work in helping the ecosystem. So it's just amazing when you start up, there are a lot of ifs and buts and challenges that you're facing. And this help goes tremendously in giving motivation, inspiring the startups with taking the step and going strong as they venture into this difficult, challenging area. So it's a great work. Thanks for having me here. It gives me a pleasure. Succeed has been helping a lot of startups, including the healthcare startups and the health tech, medtech start. So like you set the context. 2020 has been a watershed year. I mean, it's a breakthrough year in so many dimensions, so many terms. Such a challenging situation the nation faced, the world faced, and I mean, there have been a lot of challenges, negatives, tragedies, but I think if you look at the positives from the medtech, health tech space, it has been tremendous. I mean, I think the challenge with COVID, what COVID posed, uh, accelerated the entire thing by about 4 to 5 years. It has been a tremendous push that technology in the health tech segment, which role the technology can play in the health tech segment, which we witnessed in this current year. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the e-pharmacies grew by about 200%. The orders in e-pharmacies grew by about 200%. The e-pharmacies adoption, it also increased by about 2 times. The telemedicine startups, for example, say Practo, Librate, they saw a 3 times jump in usage as a result of COVID. So what happened was the friction in terms of physicality. I mean, being present in the clinic, being present in the hospital, being close to the doctor. I think that because of COVID, there was a challenge. So automatically adoption had to take place, and that really had a tremendous push for the industry. I mean, if you look at the I mean, if you look at the opportunities which have been created and the growth rates which today we are seeing as a result of this, the telemedicine business has grown to about $45 million in one single year, and it's growing at 70%. E-pharmacy business has grown to about 700 million, and it's growing at about 63%. The e-diagnostics business, which was a very, very small, it has grown to about $70 million, growing to about 68%. The wearable markets has been growing, but it saw a growth of 144% in 2020 with 36 million units being sold. So I think the tremendous push we've seen as a result of COVID. And with the situation being uncertain even in the current year, and we're still not sure as to how things are going to progress further, this is only going to consolidate, only going to get better from a health tech, medtech startup point of view. Obviously, in general, the situation is not good, but like we have to look at the positive side as well. So this is probably the positive side for the health tech, medtech side. So in terms of opportunities, I think some of the opportunities which can really emerge is so telemedicine, as I said, all these pharmacies, telemedicines combining with wearables, combining that with analytics and patient records management, electronic patient records. I think all of this put together can be a huge game changer in how healthcare is delivered in India. Access to healthcare as a result of technology. So earlier, if you look at the tier 2, tier 3 cities or towns and villages, nobody would even think of using technology. There is a huge, tremendous push towards use of technology to get access of healthcare. From that angle, the National Digital Health Mission. So I think government took some beautiful, immediate policy changes. For example, the telemedicine policy, the e-pharmacy act, which is being pushed, the implementation or at least putting in place the National Digital Health Mission. So, I mean, I would advise people who are in this space or want to be in this space to go and check what the possibilities National Digital Health Mission offers. I mean, if you go to the site and search, it's amazing. The stack that they're looking at, the possibility they're talking about, it's absolutely amazing. So anyone who wants to be in this space needs to go there, check this out, deliberate, brainstorm as to what possibilities exist as a result of what the government is trying to push. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I completely echo with you because even the kind of push we have seen in Indian, healthcare ecosystem too. I mean, we have seen emerging amazing startups like Cure.ai. They've got FDA approval. So some of our startups who've been actually doing telemedicine, remote patient monitoring, vitals, vital monitoring. So the ventilators and all that thing. So given the opportunity, yes, there's a lot of acceleration. There's a lot of rise on these startups, but I see. I mean, again, how do they actually plan their entire business model? Though from a very outset, it looked like whether they should go B2C, B2B. There's always a big confusion around that, And I mean, I all the time talk to startups and try to understand where they should be, but they come with another mindset. So it's always very difficult. So I really want to understand from an investor's perspective also, like how do you see for medtech specifically, right? I mean, because it requires a lot of regulatory, a lot of validation. It's just not a consumer place that you have something like an Amazon, you start selling. So you need to really bring in a lot of regulatory over there, a lot of validation. Doctors should be there wherever. It's really not like the other product you are selling. So how do you see that? What are the different customer segments and the broader segments as a startup they should go ahead? Of course, there would be different points when they would chase B2C, B2B. So that, and then when an investor, because you look at so many proposals, right? So many deals. So when you look at, is there any brownie points or any weighted score in terms of when you look at the business model too, so that while your evaluation metrics at the end, because I've seen some of the evaluation metrics, Vikrant talked about that looks fascinating, that okay, how the finally deal flow coming. So yeah, anything on that would be really helpful for the startups.
Yeah, so as you rightly said, I think the allure of being present in the B2C segment is huge, right? Because the visibility is there. It's a big opportunity. The eyeballs are there. So the allure is huge on the B2C segment. So predominantly we can, I mean, before we go to there, I would just say that the classification can be done. If you look at the medtech, that we can look at the B2C segment and the B2B segment. There are two big segments we're talking about. So any B2C is, I mean, very clearly understandable. Anything where your target customer is the consumer, individual. So obviously the market is much bigger. It's alluring. All the focus is there. You tend to be there in the media, the market, so it's very, very alluring. It entices you. But I mean, we have to be careful, and we have to be we need to understand that it's a difficult game. The burn rate are pretty high there. You need to establish your credentials. The competition tends to be higher. The regulatory framework definitely becomes one of the impediments, because specific. So unlike, like you said, unlike IT or software services, when you're thinking of medical and pharma and healthcare, there are regulatory bottlenecks, and you need to. There are those tend to pose as hurdles. So even before you come as a proof of concept or a minimal viable product, you need to look at the regulatory framework. You need to ensure that compliance to the regulatory framework is there or not. So from that angle, the B2C segment tends to become a bit challenging. I think there are a lot of opportunities on a B2B segment. So what happens in the B2B segment is where you're providing services to businesses, or you're creating opportunities of doing business between business and businesses. So huge opportunities out there. I mean, if you look at hospitals, I mean, hospitals do a lot of purchasing. They do a lot of inventory management. They do a lot of operations management. The patient management, patient records, quality and documentation in hospitals, which is a regulatory issue. All of this tend to be working in silos or in a very bad, not really managed. You leave apart the top few chains of hospitals, but majority. So there's a huge opportunity there. So you could look at SaaS, software as a service. I mean, you establish solutions around inefficiencies. You establish solutions of platforms. I mean, for example, say buying itself is a huge opportunity. I mean, if a hospital needs to buy, so you could have a platform where you're giving an opportunity of price discovery, a parallel channel for opportunity to buy, reverse auctioning. So I mean, I think it's a huge segment which doesn't have all the challenges which a B2C segment could have. The only challenge which I see in a B2B segment is, so why we do not see that? Because I think people who are within that system, they can see the inefficiencies of the system. They are aware of the processes within the system, the systems within the system. They have a network. So they have that network. So I think people who are not in the system are unable to figure out the opportunity. So so what needs to be done by startups is either we find people who are a part of the system to actually take the plunge and start up, so that to figure out opportunities of removing inefficiencies, or say platform businesses creating business opportunities, or startups being from the technical side need to have people who can be either consultants or who can partner with those startups. So I think that thing needs to be created, some platform which needs to bring these two expertise together to accelerate the entire process towards creation of or discovery of the B2B space. So in fact, I would say that even organizations like you could probably look at that opportunity or devise a mechanism where startups can look at people who are embedded in the network, so that the network knowledge of the domain and the tech knowledge can combine together. So I think that's one challenge on the B2B segment, but otherwise the opportunities of the B2B segment are much, much easier to capture, much, much easier to expand. Even today, when we talk about $1.9 billion of total medtech space, out of that, $900 million is on a B2B side only, which we are not even aware of. So I would advise people to look at those opportunities.
Yeah, I think you did yesterday when we were talking, you did mention also a couple of use cases like, vaccine delivery, the last mile delivery where you have a cold chain.
I
So
mean,
that
amazing.
itself is a big segment where one can actually.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
last mile delivery. So there's so many things. So you have cold chain is not monitored today. Supply chain in pharma, there are so many solutions which can come in place. Traceability, tracking. We can use blockchain technology for authentication, for knowing the entire traceability of the entire supply chain. Cold chain, along with monitoring using blockchain to monitor. I mean, all in Hyderabad, I think incubated at Triple IT itself is I'm forgetting the name, is a startup which has got grants from WHO, Geneva, working on blockchain to give traceability of cold chain and for vaccines or pharma products. So a lot of opportunities around.
Yeah, agree. And so you did touch upon like, if you have a solution which is directly for the B2B segment for the hospital round, but even though if you have a solution your offering is for the patient, but still can you go route through the B2B to C? So how do you see that happening? I mean, though your solution is not directly an offering, like you have
Yeah.
an AI solution or a predictive analysis or a differential diagnosis for the customer, for the patient, but how do you directly sell it to the patient, or you actually route through the B2B to C?
Yeah. So when you do a B2B2C, you have the advantage of a front end. So an established B2B, established business player, which already has a front end. So you don't have to struggle as much to reach out to the consumer when you do a B2B2C, because then you are using the network effect of the existing business player, which already has reach. So your access to the consumer through a business partner is much faster. So the trouble, the the effort and resources that you probably would need to put in to get that traction drastically get reduced.
Right.
So I think the idea what you're saying is a collaborative model. So rather than not only for this, I mean, even for creating something which is wholesome. For example, what I talked about, variables plus analytics plus uh, patient record management. Uh, if it's not necessary that one single startup needs to work on all of these. I think it's important that we identify our strengths, collaborate with people who have strengths in the other part, and work together to give a wholesome solution.
Right. Yeah, completely. And that's we definitely advocate that. Like, I really try to bring different strengths together, and then sort of present it to the customer, so that it looks like a really a complete end-to-end solution, though it's not one startup, but yeah, combining. So just bundle up the solutions, right?
Exactly. I mean, so for example, say when you talk of variables, we're not talking of the normal variables that we have today, but we're talking of variables which would integrate whole lot of parameters which need to be capped. For example, say if elderly care need to be monitored from home, so a variable which could integrate a BP monitoring, heart rate monitoring, SpO2, temperature, instead of having multiple devices, the patient requiring to like get feedback from multiple devices, integrate. So instead of that, creating, putting everything together is what because we need to reduce the friction. Otherwise, with multiple devices, the friction increases for usage. So we need to reduce the friction. So maybe a single startup might not be able to do that, or putting this together and then the analytics, then the patient management record, a single startup might not be able to, will not have the bandwidth to do all of this. So finding partners where synergies can exist is going to be very important, and that can really accelerate the entire thing.
Yeah, I think we would be hitting the 30 minutes time,
Oh
but
yeah,
I
yeah,
have
yeah.
actually two quick questions. One is, I mean, we are already talking about so much about the digital health, remote monitoring, tele consultation, and all that. But then, how do you see next decade look like? What is next? Can we really think of being more proactive and talk about preventive care? Understand that space. How long we are just going to take care of the sick care? Can digital health provide that sort of offering to being more proactive, preventive care?
Yeah, I mean, so if you look at the last health tech report from Inc. 42, they're projecting that the preventive healthcare would be about $170 billion market by 2025. So although it includes, so what it includes is insurance, it includes fitness, it includes diet and food, it includes um, um, diagnostics, preventive diagnostics. So 170. So we're potentially looking at $170 billion in 20 by 20, another 5 years. So huge market. In fact, if you look at one case where CureFit, that beautifully transitioned from offline stores to online classes, including telemedicine. Then they included the food, again, healthy food, diet, and then groceries. So a beautiful transition which happened. So we need to do. A lot of companies can probably, startups can probably look at that as a prime example of how beautifully transition can happen and addressing the market based upon the change scenario. Uh, Elderly care is going to be huge. So although you mentioned elderly care, I mean, so elderly care in terms of prevention, I'm saying, so they don't need to go to the hospital. So again, wearables along with mental health solutions, along with analytics, can do wonders. The young generation, they are tech savvy, early adopters, easy adopters. So again, wearables plus mobile plus analytics, active social life, promoting active social life for the young generation. Uh, Mental health is a huge area where you could uh, give easy access to people for, for example, say today, if I need to go for, so again, technology can give a platform for mental health experts to talk, understand the people who are seeking mental health issues, seeking mental health tech solutions. Another beautiful place would be employers. So employers would want their employees to be productive, to be healthy. So more healthy the employee, happy employee is, the more productive employees, less man days are lost. So again, that could be a huge opportunity where you could just collaborate with them to engage employees in lifestyle activities, healthy activities, better diet. It also reduces probable cost in terms of man hours lost and the cost that they're incurring on health insurance.
Right. I mean, you just touched upon the mental health, which itself is an hours of talk on that. I would, yeah, sometime maybe we can talk about that, the whole funding and the business model around that, and what's the market look like for mental health, which is going to be the next
Yes.
big thing. So, but then, yeah, one thing which I would like to definitely ask you before we sign off is, that's from everybody's, all the startup over here, is what is the investment thesis from Succeed Innovation? If any one of us want to, bag some of the funding from Succeed, what we should be doing, or as an investor, how do you see, what are those three very important things a startup should definitely have?
Yeah, so I think so any anyone who is wanting to venture into their own setup, starting an enterprise, and take the plunge, howsoever enticing the idea might look like, howsoever in love in with your idea you might be, I think that at least two critical things that you need to evaluate the idea from. That's how, because you have to look at it from a perspective of how a funder would be looking at. So any funding agency would be looking at two critical things: the viability and the scalability potential of the idea. And second would be the exit strategy. So how soon, so viability and scalability is how viable the idea is. So you might love it, but if either you are not on the right time, or the addressable market is not there, or the addressable market is, or regulatory frameworks are out there. I mean, it could be any reason. So is it viable? Then second thing, is it scalable? So so how would you be able to scale the idea? I mean, what kind of a competition exists? What kind of addressable market is there? I mean, it's not only the total market, but addressable market, right? So so this is extremely critical. And the second thing which needs to be looked at is, again, from the investor's perspective, they're looking at exit. They're looking at, all right, would we be able to exit in about 3 years time, 4 years time, 5 years times? So that's like, always evaluate what are the exit options available if I scale up available for the funders, whoever is funding. So you need to be very, very clear about it and explicitly state when you are going or talking about or pitching that this is what we think is how an exit can be offered, because that's the core objective of a funding agency. So they're looking at an exit. So these are the two critical points. Yeah, I mean, so from Succeed perspective, what I can say is that looking at the health tech and the med tech, what happens is, I mean, we are at a very nascent stage. I mean, it's for sure, COVID has really accelerated the entire thing tremendously. But we still understand we are at a very nascent stage for health tech, med tech in India. So what we do is we try to tweak around our evaluation metrics and give a better leverage to health tech, med tech startups in terms of the exit timeframes. So we are more considerate when we're looking at the exit timeframes. We are also looking at a higher proportion of early startups, seed stage startups, because we know maturity in the market is still not there. It's nascent stage. So the ratio that we have for how much total fund to be allocated to seed stage, early stage fund startups in other domains, in health tech, med tech, that is slightly higher. So that's how we are trying to support the ecosystem.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. I think those last two pieces are definitely, like those golden written words that, it has to be scalable. The addressable market should be really, compelling enough for an investor to look at a solution, and yeah, the exit strategy. So I don't, in fact, I look at a lot of pitch decks, and I think half of them does not talk about exit strategy. So I think that's definitely something which is missing. And it's not that they don't know. I mean, they definitely know about it, but it doesn't come out that clearly. And as an investor, since they're so laser focused, they would definitely want to see something like this, right?
Right. That's
so. So with that, thank you so much, Sarthak. It was really great, and we would definitely want to have a few more rounds, to understand a little bit more deeper perspective and insight of, maybe we can do a next time, how to have a great pitch sort of things. Great insights, and yeah, we look forward for a few more these sessions, and thank you so much for this Saturday evening.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for having me here. I would reiterate, you guys are doing an amazing job helping the ecosystem. It's extremely required. So probably if we take a leave from our discussion, there could be a possibility of looking at opportunities where we get people together, for example, say network with people who are looking at who are experts of the tech side, with collaborating with people, finding people from the network, so that we could create magic, so to say.
Great. Okay. So yeah, thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. And yeah, stay safe, stay healthy, stay home.
Yeah. Thank you so much.